Rose Tico's character is only marginally better than Holdo's character, but she is, in some ways, a quite interesting character, but badly developed in this movie. And she's an example of one of the many problems with The Last Jedi. It attempts to be a postmodern movie, a deconstructionist film that is trying to make you question everything about Star Wars, but at the same time, it wants to go into a certain kind of dogma about resistance and how rich people are bad. So, in the beginning of the movie, Rose's sister sacrifices herself. So we get that. So when Rose meets Finn for the first time, it's a very strange interaction. Finn once again is acting like a coward, and it's very embarrassing. I mean, as a black man who is on the conservative side of things, I never really agreed with all this ethnic quotas in these movies. But, I mean, seeing Finn, like, literally deciding that he wants to go and look for Rey instead of actually helping the Resistance, his character is, it doesn't even make sense that he was even in the First Order to begin with, how they didn't even find out about his problems, his inability to fight. Even on both sides, he can't commit to a side. He's more interested in the personal than the ideological. So Rose, she is supposed to be on the Raddus, which is the flagship of the Resistance. She is there to stop people from defecting. So I will give Rian Johnson this. I'll give him a bone here and say, okay, you decided to actually show that the Resistance had people trying to get away from this organization, that there were some people who just couldn't stand the heat and they wanted to give up. I understand that. And that's realistic. I like that. It's not as idealistic as the original trilogy days, but if you're making a movie such as this in a postmodern age, it does seem to make sense to have that. So she's literally there as kind of a she's essentially to force people to fight for the Resistance in a way to save their resources. And if you were to I would say honestly, she's there to stop people from literally leaving and shocking them with that little tool of hers. So she does that. Finn and her have a little bit of banter, but moving on. Admiral Holdo is not giving details of whatever she's doing. So, Rose and Finn and Poe decide to formulate a plan, which they will go to Canto Bight to find a way to find a great codebreaker who can get into the flagship of the First Order. And be able to hack into their hyperspace tracker so that their ships can be able to leave. They can be able to travel without being tracked by the First Order. Because that's essentially what the First Order has in this movie compared to the Empire and Empire Strikes Back. Because the Empire did not have those technologies. So that's why that there is this large rebel fleet on the edge of the galaxy. But in this movie, the First Order has that, so they can track these people through space, and that's how they're able to obliterate the Resistance fleet. So they go to the planet of Canto Bight, Finn and Rose, to find the codebreaker. And interestingly enough, this is information that's given to them by Maz Kanata while she's in a firefight. Interesting. But kind of awfully convenient. That information should have been more difficult to obtain. But anyways. So when they go to Canto Bight, it is kind of a space Las Vegas. filled with rich people and high rollers. Some great costume design in the movie, um, in that particular on that particular planet. Great sets, but it's the message that comes out of Rose's mouth that messes up this whole part of the movie. I mean, Finn is kind of taken aback by everything he sees. He's amazed by it, but then Rose is like, "Well, look at the Safiras being tortured," and it's like it's just a stupid, warmed over. Animals are better than humans, which they're not. We're sentient. They're not. Yeah, we like to idealize animals in this world, but at the end of the day, it's like animals would not hesitate to eat human beings if they had to for their own survival, depending on what the animal is, of course. But it doesn't really matter. It's just overly idealistic thinking that has no real place in this movie. It's stupid. Um, yeah, and but the thing is, like, in what I'm going to say is to kind of elaborate on this is that Rose does not exactly talk about the Falfiers being tortured or being zapped or whatever. Um, the thing is that she talks about how like she and her sister were like slaves or something, um, and she hated the town and all the people in it. Well, maybe not all the people in it, but she didn't like what the town, what the city, the planet stood for in the state of the galaxy of things. It was a symbol of corruption for her. Um, and she wanted to tear down the town or something. So Finn's attitude, he just like changes like someone switched somebody switched it on. So, like somebody turned him like went into his brain and they switched something on. It's like the guy just like he has no counterbalance, excuse me, counterpoint to what she says. He doesn't say things like, well, I understand you're angry, but I mean, man, these people, they have money. I wouldn't mind living here for a week in some kind of a humorous quibble. And then Rose would be kind of like, you don't want to be these people. And she says it with like a snarky sneer or whatever. But Finn is like, he's not just, he's going from being amazed to say, we need to blow this place up or whatever. Like, it's his character is really, at this point, it's more like a puppet than a person in many ways. He's really useless in this movie, and it's very sad because, he was a defector from the First Order. Now, well, what he wants to defect from the Resistance, great. His character is even more damaged now. And he can't even have consistent dialogue. He doesn't even get to do anything with Rey, because now his attention's been distracted by Rose. But anyways, so, they go around and on those staff years, on those big animals, they go around rampaging for the town like a bunch of idiots. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. I mean, they should be trying to keep quiet. But anyways, like the whole thing about it is like they are there to get the Codebreaker. Why is it that when they go to the planet, they get so easily captured? If the Counterbite authorities were smart enough, they could have contacted the First Order or whoever. And they said, these people are there. So, and then all of a sudden, DJ shows up. And I have to say, I like the character more than I do Holdo or Rose's character. In the short time that Benicio, whatever his name is, the actor's name, the actor, he did a great job. Benicio del Toro, yes, that's the guy's name, Benicio del Toro. In the short amount of time he gave more life to that character than he did to Finn in the entire movie. The entire time he was in the movie, DJ had more character development, had more life to him than Rose or Holdo or Finn or Rey or Hux. It's ridiculous. But they go there. They get this guy is already he's set to help them get into the supremacy. So what happens? They escape, and then they go on these huge animals. They rampage through the town. They go, and it's just like these people. They just got captured. Don't you think they wanted to pursue a more stealthy approach? But no, they have to run through the town, being a huge target. It's ridiculous. It's something out of a Disney movie or something. It doesn't seem like, are these people military people, or are they, what's going on here? So, they go on to Del Toro's ship, onto DJ's ship. I mean, and it's just these characters. The DJ is more interesting than these two characters. I mean, it's just like, so when you realize that DJ has betrayed the resistance, his rationale is essentially, they beat you today, you beat them tomorrow, and they'll beat you the other time or whatever. And it's just kind of like, that's kind of how life is. He's a darker version of Han Solo. He's a little bit more harder edge, but he's not in it for like art. He's not doing the betrayal of the resistance to he's not doing it because out of malice. I think he's doing it for money, and he doesn't really care about the grand ideological reasons for anything. But unlike Han Solo, he just doesn't have he works alone. He's not interested in kind of like, changing his mind. He's like, and Rose is like, you'll pay for this. And like, and DJ is like, maybe, but he's kind of like a guy who goes by the ebb and flow of things. He's a pragmatist. He's not an idealist. But neither is he, but he's not a pessimist, but he's more of a, this is how life works, and I rather act like that rather than trying to attain some kind of idealistic version of myself that just wouldn't be me. So I liked his character. But the whole point of getting the Codebreaker by these two characters of Rose and Finn was a complete waste of time. I mean, it ended up actually causing the deaths of many resistance fighters. If they hadn't just stayed on the ship and did nothing, and simply waited until maybe to mount a coup against Holdo or something, instead of going off like that, onto that planet and giving DJ the opening he needed in order to betray the resistance at its weakest. It's they could have saved lives there, but instead they decided to go on this stupid side quest. It doesn't have any point. I know people will say, it has a point, but it's like, you need to build a background. You need to build a structure to that. It has to make sense. So they go to the planet, but we don't understand the state of things in the galaxy. We don't understand, like, why there are still humans being enslaved on the planet when it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's silly. I mean, at least in the Phantom Menace, we got the sense the Republic's authority wasn't absolute. It wasn't everywhere. It made sense. But in this movie, we don't understand what's going on. It just, like when Qui-Gon tries to, give Watto the Republic credits, and Watto's like, I don't accept Republic credits. The Republic's authority does not stretch throughout all of the galaxy. But, it's like, well, what's going on with Canto Bight? There's no desire to expand upon what is going on over there. It's very disappointing. So that's why I'm saying, like, the whole time spent on Canto Bight, it was a distraction. It had no real purpose. And people say, well, because, in the last frames of the movie, the broomstick boy sees the stars, and he says, oh, I'm motivated to fight it's stupid. I would not be motivated to fight for the resistance just because Luke Skywalker projected himself and then committed suicide. I mean, that's just, it's not a motivating story. I mean, the fact is, if you figured out what exactly was going on as a citizen of the shattered New Republic, there's no way that I'm going to join the resistance just because of what Luke Skywalker did. he chose to do it at the very last minute. That doesn't seem very inspiring to me. And not only that, he wasn't there to actually help them. He just projected himself. That that's not going to inspire anybody. But of course, the writers can do what they want. But it's silly. The fact that they need a, this is what's going to inspire people. I mean, so they weren't doing anything after the whole home world had been destroyed by the First Order. It's stupid. But anyway, in the final battle, on the Battle of Crate, it is just like the hypocrisy of this character. Just after her own sister had sacrificed herself to save the lives of resistance fighters. Now she prevents Finn from flying his airspeeder all the way into that siege weapon the First Order was using. And she's like saying, well, we're not going to win by fighting what we hate, but defending what we love. And that's just a ridiculous, stupid comment. I mean, it would make more sense in a different context, if not in a battlefield, maybe. And maybe I would be able to tolerate it. It's still kind of a cheesy line, but, it's just inappropriate for where they are. I mean, they're literally are down to dozens of people at this point. And they're not even fazed by the fact that their whole mission was a complete disaster and made the situation worse. And yet she has the audacity to say this kind of stuff to Finn, who was trying to sacrifice his life for those he loved. Supposedly he loved. But then again, he tried to defect or leave the second time around, so I'm not quite sure what's going on with him, but he tried to do something, okay? Now, he doesn't even have that chance now. So, he doesn't even have that chance anymore. He doesn't even have a chance to show that he's not a coward. That's not all his life has been about. It's about running away. He runs away from the First Order. He runs away from, he runs away from the specter of being involved in a much larger struggle against the First Order in The Force Awakens, but comes back. But then, when they actually go to Starkiller Base, he lies and says, well, I know the insides and outs, but I only worked in sanitation. And it's like he lies all the time. He's a coward. He flees. He tries to flee the Resistance after they have all these problems, so he can go after Rey, and then he wants to set things right. He wants to do right. He wants to sacrifice his life so he can do one good thing, and yet Rose takes that away from him. And it's the most hypocritical thing I have seen, literally. I mean, it's her sister sacrificed herself, and yet Rose does not want another person to sacrifice their life for exactly the same thing. So this is what I'm saying. Like, this damages Rose's character because she's not considering what her sister did. This completely, I mean, Rose's character is still salvageable to a certain point, to a certain degree. Finn's character is not. Finn's character has been so damaged at this point. It would have been better if he had remained in the First Order and he was like a Boba Fett character and we didn't have Phasma at all. I still don't understand. Phasma is even more useless than Finn at this point. But it's absolutely sad what's happened to Finn's character. He doesn't have the chance to prove himself now. And, I mean, he's like a butt of jokes man. What is he? Is he want to be a hero, or is he just going to be running away, driven by personal issues? Yeah, he has no character development. He's static. Rose, I mean, the things that she says to him, that she says to Finn, are the epitome of hypocrisy. And it really shows you, like, I understand people want to defend this movie, but that kind of stuff is like, I mean, yeah, it's a fun movie, but at the same time, it's like, when you look back on it, it's like, what does that inform you about the way that these characters have been developed? Rey, Finn, Rose, they're not memorable characters. They're badly written characters. And they don't have a background to support these characters. They don't have the state of the galaxy is not explained or anything. So we don't get a sense of where these characters come from. We don't understand what their motivations are. We don't understand any of that. We get kind of little drips of that, but none of it. None of it's very substantial. So what I want to say here is that, in conclusion, that one of the main problems with The Last Jedi is just simply these essentially how it treats its characters, and it's beyond what I've stated in regular videos. I mean, in previous videos. I mean, this, which was largely focused on like Rey, and Snoke, but it extends to these other characters, and it really shows to you when you talk about Rey. Yes, in isolation, there is some character development. But in relation to all the other characters, the relationships are not explored. A story can't just have the characters. The characters can't just be developing in isolation. They have to bounce off of one another. They have to have interplay between one another. And the interplay's got to make sense. The interplay's got to be engaging. But that's the fundamental problem with this movie. It's just these in particular, Finn and Rose are just awful, awful characters. And they just don't do anything, really. I mean, I think Rose is slightly more salvageable than Finn is. Yeah, she is definitely more salvageable at this point. But I mean, it's really looking bad, guys. I mean, you could say all you want about special effects, but at the end of the day, this movie is going to be forgotten. Probably only remembered for its controversy. And that is my 2 cents on the matter.